Gon' kick it off then, whoa. Gon' kick it off then, whoa.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for tuning in to ESPN The Network. I'm award-winning sports writer and creator of WTF2, where women talk football too. I'm also the author of When Football Season Turns You Into His Side Chick, the ultimate survival guide for relationships and households during football season, and my book is available right now on Amazon.com. Please go out and purchase your copies, and I thank you in advance. My name is Latasha Miles, aka Joan Madden, the Gridiron Goddess, and you're watching the fourth installment of the Milestone. And this time of year, we typically welcome the spring equinox. We wish you a happy St. Patrick's Day. We adjust to daylight savings time, and as much as I love it getting darker later, I could use my extra hour back, stat, pronto, immediately, or ahorita. But nonetheless, what a delightful time of year it is. And of course, we cannot forget it's March Madness, yes. And as you notice, I've made some changes here in the studio, here at the Film Cave. That's right, the studio. Be clear. This is the studio. Don't get it twisted. So, I'm typically talking about football, but I've made some changes. Got a basketball back there, a Maryland Terrapin cap. Reason being is because the late, great Lynn Bias and Michael Jordan are my favorite college basketball players. So, hence the photograph of them behind me as well. Michael Jordan playing defense on Lynn Bias. And of course, I had to throw some J's back there as well. For the second week in a row, no polo from the homie. Well, of course, except for my Ralph Lauren frames. That's so I can look and see you good people and talk to you. And thanks again for tuning in. Also, as I mentioned, no polo today. I've channeled my Maya and Jay-Z remix of the Best of Me video and threw on a basketball jersey for this episode. That's why, Carolina Blue Kicks hottest on the block, used to Willie bicycle since I was 6 in my Jay-Z voice. And speaking of which, allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Latasha Miles, aka the Baseline Beauty, and this is the Baseline edition of the Milestone. Yeah, we're going to take a break from the gridiron this week and head to the hardwood. Oh no, she's not one-dimensional, not the homie. I love all sports, especially football and basketball. So today, we're going to talk brackets. Now, we've all seen Selection Sundays go down. The tip-off is underway, and it's coming nothing short of subplots and dramatics. Starting with the number one seeds, you got Kansas, Oregon, North Carolina, and Virginia. Now, Kansas is the number one seed overall, while UNC and Virginia hold down the ACC respectively. And Oregon is going to be interesting to see their uniforms. Now, this isn't as dominant of a class of number one seeds as we've seen in years past. They're all very vulnerable, and not since 2008 have all number one seeds reached the Final Four. And I don't think this year is going to be any different, and I'll explain later. After all, these number one seeds have more combined losses than prior top quartets. Yeah, let that marinate. There's no dominant team in this year's series, no really truly heavy favorites. But let's take a look at each bracket, shall we? We shall. So getting started with the South region, where the number one overall seed, Kansas, has set up shop, and they are the team to beat. If this was a month ago, Maryland would have been the favorite to contest the Jayhawks, but a sloppy ending to the regular season during their first stint in the Big Ten Conference might have the Terps out in the second round in a tough battle against Cal, but they are also an underachieving team this season. And Cal is very capable of losing to Arizona or even Hawaii for that matter. Even if Maryland has to face South Dakota State, that won't be a walk in the park for them either. The Terps get the advantage because the Jackrabbits lack size, but they love to shoot threes, so Maryland's defense must be on point. Again, they brought this all on themselves. However, if the Terps can make it to Louisville, most likely they will face Kansas, and that's a tall task as Coach Bill Self has the Jayhawks playing some of their best basketball over the past month, indicating why they are the number one seed overall. But if Maryland survives, and it will all depend on the play of Melo Trimble. Maryland's inconsistency concerns me, but Trimble has the potential to take over this tournament, and that is what will lead the Terps out of this bracket. Villanova blew their shot at the number one seed, losing to Seton Hall in the Big East Finals. Temple faces an Iowa team on the decline, and they haven't played up to their full potential since January. And of course, Villanova would love to take on Temple again as they blew them out of the gym last month. I love this Buffalo story with Coach Nate Oates coming from high school coaching 3 years ago, hired to replace Bobby Hurley. That Bobby Hurley. And then he learned that his wife had lymphoma, unfortunately. Now, the team has rallied behind Coach Oates and his wife, and she's doing well. And Buffalo is in our brackets for the second straight season, but they'll be facing a tough Miami team with explosive offensive power. And this team, along with Maryland, will offer Kansas the most troubles in this regional action of play. I think that Arizona is a sleeper, a true dark horse candidate, and they will give Miami a fit in the second round. But I do think that the Canes will prevail in that matchup, but their run may come to a screeching halt just before the Final Four play of action when they have to face the Jayhawks. Moving on to the West, I can't believe that Oregon is the number one seed in this one, especially considering that Michigan State isn't a number one seed in this tournament. Now, I still think Oregon is number one seed in regards to their football uniforms, but for bracketology, nah. They're a good team, particularly over the past couple of months with consistent elite defenders, but not number one seed worthy, especially because their conference isn't as stout as others. Hey, it's not their fault, but I don't think that they will make it to the Final Four anyway. We'll get to that in a moment. I think that the underseeded St. Joseph will offer some strict competition to Oregon if they can get past Cincinnati. Now, Duke is the number 4 seed in this region, and you can never count them out thanks to Brandon Ingram, Grayson Allen, and because they do have one of the best offenses in college basketball. But this isn't one of Coach K's top 20 teams, and they seem to do this every other year, hit or miss type of thing, i.e. they're the reigning champs from 2015, but in 2014, an early round exit courtesy of number 14 seed Mercer. Many people think as if fellow North Carolina school UNC Wilmington will be this year's Mercer for the Duke Blue Devils, and rightfully so, as Duke really doesn't have the depth to sustain. But if Duke can continue on this surge with their 5 guys and outlast the Seahawks, they could very well beat Baylor and secure a Sweet 16 bid. They have the capability to beat Oregon or St. Joseph's. I just can't fully see it happening. What I do see happening is Oklahoma coming out of this bracket. It's very much in their favor. Buddy Hield is the co-national player of the year, and Coach Lon Kruger with his experience of taking 5 teams to the NCAA tournament. Now, the Sooners won't be unchallenged on this quest. They'll face hurdles from Melvin Johnson, Mo Ali Cox, and the defensively sound VCU, perhaps Texas A&M with their excellent three-point shooting, or West Washburn and the Northern Iowa squad. Even if Duke awaits, which could be an interesting high-scoring affair since neither team guards very well and they both like to shoot threes, I really like Oklahoma to come out of this bracket. Baylor is very talented and perhaps the most dangerous team in this region with Motley and Price, but I still like the Sooners to succeed and the number 1 seed Oregon out, keeping the 8-year streak alive since the last time all number 1 seeds met in the Final Four. Now, on to the Midwest. Virginia's trip to the number 1 seed came courtesy of losing only 3 games in their last 7 weeks of the season, all to fellow ACC opponents. And the margins of those losses were 1 point to Duke, 3 points to Miami, and 4 points to UNC during the conference tournament. Now, not to take anything away from Villanova, because they definitely would have been a number 1 of this region had they won their conference tournament. And as a result, UVA would have dropped to the number 2 seed. But what's the thanks to the Cavs as being a number 1 seed? Another possible match between them and Michigan State, a squad who ended their national championship run 2 years ago when they were also a number 1 seed then. That's a sneaky committee, right? This is probably my favorite of the 4 brackets. Lots of intrigue here. The enjoyable team to watch here is the Seton Hall Pirates, who play like a top 10 team in the country with so much strength and emotion, and the dangerous Gonzaga team coached by Mark Few. And Syracuse versus Dayton, who is with their full arsenal, and all will be available just as the tournament begins. It was an interesting approach on how Syracuse got in, as the committee decided that Coach Boeheim missing 9 games was the equivalent as a player missing games due to a suspension. Really? Purdue could take UVA out of their game briefly because of their size up front, and A.J. Hammons is the most dominant senior in college basketball, but the Boilermakers guards give the advantage back to the Cavs. Purdue should have been ranked higher, but nonetheless, they'll make a little noise in this region, as well as Iowa State, who is better than their record indicates, although they are a matchup I'm sure that UVA will prefer in the Sweet 16. But ultimately, this bracket comes down to the ACC Player of the Year, the Malcolm Brogdon-led Cavaliers versus Denzel Valentine and the Spartans of Michigan State. I love me some Coach Tom to the Izzo and Coach Tony Bennett. Well, actually, I love both Tony Bennett's. But coming out of the Midwest region, I think it will be Michigan State. No, Virginia. No, the Spartans. No, wait a minute. The Cavs. No, Izzo in the game. Nah, it'll be Bennett and the fellas. But wait, ACC. But wait, Michigan State has Forbes, but Virginia the number one seed. Moving along to the East, no question that UNC is the favorite to win this bracket, especially based on how they played in the ACC tournament and during the last game of the regular season. Returning the favorite to spoil Duke's senior night. They're playing hot at the right time, and not that it really matters, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. They were the preseason's number one team by many. And even with that being said, this won't be an easy transit for the Tar Heels. What if they have to face Big Ten regular season champions Indiana, who arguably has one of the best point guards in Yogi Nobera, and also the supporting cast of Thomas Bryant and Troy Williams? Or perhaps they'll face Kentucky. And any team coached by John Calipari is dangerous. And what about the depth of Xavier, as they are led by the potential coach of the year, Chris Mack? Having such a high seed is new for this team, but definitely deserving for the underrated squad. And Carolina might be the only other team in this bracket who can match them as far as depth goes. You can't snooze on West Virginia either, but I'm not 100% sure that their style of play will work in this half-court type of tournament. But one thing is for certain, Bob Huggins, Devin Williams, and Page won't go quietly, especially Page in his last season of his collegiate career. And then there's Notre Dame, a newly acquired rival for UNC since the Fighting Irish joined the ACC in the past handful of seasons. And the Heels are fresh off of a defeat over Notre Dame in the ACC tournament, and this is a team I'm sure would like to avenge on that loss and stop UNC from their title run if they get a chance to face them. Despite their inconsistency, Notre Dame does well in mismatch battles, and having familiarity with UNC will help them on their quest. Hey, at least UNC won't have to worry about both Pitt and Wisconsin since they face each other in the first round. It will most likely be Wisconsin to win that game. Gotta love that grit from a team who surprised Kentucky last year by beating them in the Final Four, lost the heartbreaker to Duke in the national championship, abruptly lost their coach Bo Ryan to retirement in December, and they have rallied behind their new coach Greg Gard. But other than that, the committee did the Heels no favors in this bracket. But I still like them to come out of the East, especially if their level of play is as consistent as it was during these last four contests. And I'm not just saying that because I have on this jersey. Now, there are a couple of things that disappointed me about the outcome of this bracket, like it does every year and like it does for everybody. For starters, how St. Bonaventure and Monmouth ain't on here, but you got Michigan and Tulsa on here for a play-in game? I don't care that Michigan just defeated Indiana and that the Fab Five is still my favorite group of all time to grace the hardwood floor in NCAA history. And I don't care that I still consider Chris Webber to be the most attractive college basketball player of my generation. And I don't even care that Coach Harbaugh has brought the edge back to Michigan football, back to the big house in his khaki-colored chinos. Michigan should not be there. Definitely not while St. Bonaventure shared its Atlantic 10 title, and definitely not while Monmouth had road wins over UCLA and Georgetown and neutral site wins over Notre Dame and USC, and they landed in the NIT. Look, I get it though. Non-power schools have no chance of getting in the big dance. I mean, why even play your regular season scheduled games? Your conference tournament will have to be the highlight of you even making the field. That's just not right. And in the West region, how you gonna play us, the fans, by putting VCU, formerly coached by Shaka Smart, and Texas, currently coached by Shaka Smart, in the same bracket and not have them play against each other in the first round? Seriously? Who did this? Well, in this case, who didn't do this? Throwing seeds and rankings out the window for this one would have been just fine. We weren't going to trip. No, we were going to give you a pass on this one because this is what us, the fans, wanted. This is what we deserve. First, the Fat Boys break up. Now this. I mean, we already don't get any more Peyton Manning versus Tom Brady bowls. And you mean to tell me you couldn't have made some minor adjustments, done a little bit of tweaking to where we couldn't have seen this game in the first round? Seriously? I mean, we would have given you a pass on this one if the rankings weren't right. I mean, if that was the case, you shouldn't have even put these two teams in the same bracket. Sheesh, we wanted that game. Okay, let me get off of my soapbox about that. All right, and I'm going to get back to my picks. Now, this is extremely hard for me to choose a national championship, though. I mean, on last week's episode of the Milestone, I did exceptionally well with my NFL free agency picks and saying things that happened before they even happened. Yeah. But see, that was easy breezy, beautiful cover girl. But this NCAA tournament, there are no favorites. There's no domination here, not at all. But I love it. I like this type of tournament. I like how unpredictable it is. It's so muddled, and I'm going to thoroughly enjoy this tournament, this March Madness. But a quick recap. I'm taking the number 1 overall seed in the tournament, Kansas, to come out of the South. The number 2 seed, Oklahoma, to come out of the West. I like the number 1 seed, that in UNC, to come out of the East. And I've gone back and forth between number 1 Virginia and number 2 Michigan State on this one. Of course, my heart wants to go with the ACC, baby, and pick VA. But I love all things time to the Izzo. I know Michigan State has been Virginia's nemesis in tournaments, ending their seasons, but I like those 3 ACC losses by 1 point, 3 point, and 4 points to Duke, Miami, and UNC. And I think they have better prepared the Cavs and that they are battle-tested for this run over the next 6 games. Plus, they have better offense than they've had in the past. So I'm thinking 2 up, 2 down. That's right, VA, University of Virginia, coming out of the Midwest region. So there you have it. My final 4, Kansas, Oklahoma, UNC, and again, UVA in this tournament. Now, as far as my national champion, let me see how I do on this first with my brackets thus far, and I'll get back to you on a later episode, all right? So, that's going to do it for this week's installment of The Milestone. Please keep Nate Oates, the coach of the Buffalo Bulls, and his wife in your thoughts and prayers. Hey, that's my Cinderella team this season. That's my darling story in this tournament. And also, please remember to log on to Amazon.com and purchase my book, When Football Season Turns You Into His Side Chick, the ultimate survival guide for relationships and households during football season. Add me on Facebook. I'm under Latasha Joan Madden Miles. That's Latasha Joan Madden Miles. You can also email me at shespn336@gmail.com. That's right, shespn336@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter and IG at she_SPN. Again, that's she_SPN on Twitter and IG. And subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's SHESPN, the network. And that way you'll be able to see some of my other projects I've worked on my book release party highlights that I had. And also my live interviews on Fox News as well. Hey, I'm Latasha Miles, a.k.a. Joan Madden, the Gridiron Goddess. But for this special episode, I morphed into the Baseline Beauty, and I brought to you the Baseline edition of The Milestone right here on SHESPN. Thanks again so much for tuning in. I'll see you next week, and I'm out.
Gon' kick it off then. Whoa. Gon' kick it off then. It ain't a game, kick it off then. Whoa. So gon' kick it off then. Huh? What we talking about, it goes deep. Something to watch, even from the nosebleeds. The fans been waiting, anticipating for the whole week. Cause we making moves and breaking news, no time for cold feet. Don't confuse, you know the rules and that we play to win. You ain't prepared to take it, then I let the games begin. A man's world, but the ladies gon' be taking it. Not a trophy or an arm piece, unless we talking Lombardi. What's up?